everyone. Welcome back. Gather around. Hope you've had some drinks. Okay, we're now going into our question and answer session. So I hope you've got some lovely questions prepared for Mervyn. Mervyn, I have two questions that I want to ask you first before we give it to the floor. My first question is, I understand that there's been a lot of change and development within the music industry. What advice would you give the next up-and-coming Mervyn Lyn in order for him to become as successful and even more as you?
Even more?
Yeah.
Well, the business has changed an enormous amount since I first entered back in whenever. And whereas before, it was about the passion, it was about, the connections, it was about being connected to the scene and connected to music. Right now, it's about, what qualifications do you have? Because they need to set filters on who gets into the business. And I'm not necessarily a big fan of that because I think nothing should ever supersede passion. However, those are the parameters that are set, that people need to, be graduates. People need to have qualifications to get to the door, to knock. I'd say once that door's been opened and you're inside the company, don't be one of the sheep, because it's so easy to follow everybody else. If you really want to be yourself and really want to be successful, then you have to be yourself. You cannot nod your head with everybody else and then say, what an asshole. Because lots of people do that. And I used to see it a lot, but I'd be concerned. I'd be concerned as to why have we chosen this route when I don't necessarily think that is the route. So my recommendation to the new me would be yourself. However, also realize that you're in a corporation, which requires certain je ne sais quoi. Realize you're in a corporation, that you need to be able to steer a cruise ship with a paddle. Okay?
Okay. My next question is, what problems do you perceive to be within succession management?
This subject bores my blood. I can't understand why, certainly in the black culture, why there's such a resistance to helping people. It dumbfounds me that somebody would not help somebody to be good. Why would you not help someone to be good? And it happens so much more in the black community than it does anywhere else. And I've posed this question to some learned friends of mine. We discuss politics and such over a few glasses of wine, maybe a few bottles of wine, but we discuss nonetheless. And I've posed this question: what is it with black people that they don't pass the ladder down? We climb the ladder and then pull it up. And I've been told that's because of slavery, because you had to be the most strongest. And I said, there are lots of people that have been through the struggles of life. The Jewish community, for one, have been through struggles for gazillion years. They help each other. What is it with black people that they don't help each other? I just don't understand. And my big bugbear about succession management is that I love succession management. I believe in grooming the next generation to be the leaders of the future. But if you're black, maybe it doesn't count.
Okay, so We're going to now open it up to the floor.
You clearly had a great career in a music environment. I know you have your own business now. What would you say is the transition process of going from that to what you are now, and how you've been able to make sure you're successful in what you were previously and taking that learnings into your new career?
Okay, so that's Sean from MasterCard, by the way. One of my clients, so I've got to be very respectful how I answer this question. Nonetheless, I'm going to say, you've got to be honest to yourself, you know, and lots of times you may ask me to do something or to say something or to be someone, and I can't, you know, simply because, A, I've got a reputation, B, because maybe it's not me, and C, because it's important to always be the person. Well, one of the reasons why I get along with so many artists is because they trust me. And why they trust me is because I don't lie to them. And I'm going to tell you a story, a little story. You may have heard this story, Tash, but I'll tell you the story nonetheless. I was in Paris, 1992, I think. Boyz II Men. We've had a #1 record in the UK, and we were working on replicating this around the other markets. And we were in Paris for 2 days, Saturday and Sunday. And the first day was a show, and I can't even remember what it's called, but the show records all day on Sunday. It's live on Sunday. So you rehearse on a Saturday, and it's live all day Sunday, and it goes on for about 4 or 5 hours. So on the Saturday we rehearsed, and it was great. On the Sunday we had to do a kind of a mini kind of dress rehearsal, and the idea was that band would stay at the studio simply because it was live, and I didn't really want them to go back to the hotel, simply because they were scared that they would turn up on time, you know. Oh, and here's Boyz II Men. Oh, there's no Boyz II Men. Oh, well. So anyway, I'm there, and I think our marketing manager was a girl called Valerie, and we did the rehearsal on Sunday morning, dress rehearsal, full dress rehearsal, and the manager said, "My boys are hungry." And she said, "Well, we've answered your rider. Everything that you want is in your room at the studio for you to have, and now they want McDonald's. And some of them don't eat meat, so they want McDonald's with just salad." Yeah, but there's lots of salad. You know, you can have salad. We can get bread sent in. You know, everything's here. No, you don't care about you don't care about us. You know what? We're not doing this show. We're going to go back to the hotel. So they all stormed back on the bus, and the bus is driving towards the hotel. And Valerie's looking at me like this. And she said, "Are you going to say something?" I said, "What do you want me to say?" And she said, "Well, tell them they've got to do this show." I said, "Let's wait till we get to the hotel." So we got to the hotel, and the boys, they had a security guard each, by the way. The boys all ran to their rooms with their security guard. And the manager turned around to me and he said, "Mervyn, are you okay?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm fine." And he said, "I thought this show was important." And I said, "It is. Very, very important. But it's important to you. You know what? If you don't do it, the next band will come along and they'll do it. If you guys don't want to do anything here, that's absolutely fine. I'm not going to make you do anything. But if you do want to make it in France, you need to do this show." "Right, everybody get on the bus." And we made the show. It was great. They had a #1 record. Oh, hold on. Kwaku. Oh, God. This one's going to be deep and meaningful. Trust me.
I'm not quite sure.
Oh, here we go.
But in my other life, I used to be a journalist. I remember interviewing probably at Bedford House. And what I remember, I've got a question, but I just want to set the scene, was that, and this, you have to remember, this was for iPads and all this. You had a very small laptop. It wasn't very common, but what I found, you could record sound. So that's how primitive, I'm talking how long ago, your laptop you could record sound. Today it's commonplace, but in those days it wasn't. By the way, this is a question. In the 90s, a lot of DJs ended up going to the music business. I being co-opted, not co-opted, employed or headhunted by record labels, but most of them end up in A&R departments. So I was very curious about you, that you're from the DJ background, but you end up more on the management executive thing. And having told us your story, I'm going to change the question. What do you think people saw in you to employ you on the executive side as opposed to the usual A&R route?
I would say that with my 18 years at Sony, I was always into understanding where the power was. In fact, when I left the UK company to go and run Europe, my staff got me a kind of a montage made by one of the design companies that we work for, and I still see it. We have it in our house, and I still see it as I walk down the stairs. And you know what it says on it? It says, it's the people that you don't see that have the power. And that's what I've lived by. I had lots of people, you know, be it Pete and Jeff and all those people who are always in the front line being recognized for signing this artist or doing this. And my thing was never about me. It was always about the acts that I worked. And if the acts that I worked were successful, it didn't matter how I looked or what I said or how I said it. It was more what I did. So in answer to your question, why was it more important to me? Because I realized that as much as you are in signing an act or promoting an act, if you got the purse strings, you decide how that act goes to market. And I've always been a person that wanted to be in control of how do we spend this money, how do we get to market, and how do we quantify success?
How do you get an artist to market without the purse strings?
Okay, now and then. So I worked at a major, and what I would always say is that the most important thing for an artist or a new band is to have an audience. And there is no point going to a major if you haven't already got a following, because what a major specializes in is amplifying something that already exists. So if you've got nothing, you'll get nothing. If you've got something that's big enough and significant enough in your social media now or in your fan base then you've got something to work with. But if you have none of those things, I'd say it's a tough ask. And, you know, you've got to look at a record company as being a bank. So if you go to your bank manager and say, you know what, I'm going to start a business. And and the bank manager says, what's that business? And I say, that business is me. Okay, what does me do? Well, it's just me. You're not going to get any money. But if you go to the bank manager and say, I want to start a business and I want to borrow some money from you to amplify my business because I've got 50,000 people that think I'm very good at painting walls. The bank manager can say, you know what, actually, okay, I understand that. Here's some cash. And that's the way it works.
So Adele launched her album last Friday, and she chose specifically not to have it go on Spotify and Apple Music. What are your thoughts in terms of how artists are being kind of compensated for their music in this day and age, and do you think she made the right decision?
So I see this as a generational answer. For my generation, I want to touch, I want to feel, I want to see who's produced, I want to own something. I don't want a virtual copy of something that exists somewhere that if my computer crashes, I may never have again. That's my generation. Speak to my son, it's like, Dad, what are you talking about? That's rubbish. I believe that I believe, I remember talking many, many years ago when people used to talk about, oh, it's £15 a CD, that's ridiculous, you know, record companies deserve that and everything that they get. And I used to say, actually, I'm from the camp that believes a CD should be £30. And it should be £30 because the artist that's created that body of work has spent 2 hours of blood, sweat, and tears in creating something that gives you inspiration, that gives you relief, that gives you enjoyment. And it's certainly worth a lot more than the plastic and the cardboard sleeve that it's in. So, do I believe in Adele? 100%. Ask my son that question, he thinks she's a nutter.
So, David, yeah, I have a quick question. Today, basically, as you said, artists kind of break themselves a bit before a label invests in them. I'd like to know, like, if you had a label today, or based on your knowledge of labels, what do you think is the biggest opportunity for them that they're not doing? What is their oversight? Let's put it that way.
You know what? I just have to say, if I knew that answer, I wouldn't be standing here. Because I don't know what the next thing is. And I'm relying on the next generation to know what the next big thing is, because, you know, they're the guardians of our future. It's not about what I know. It's not about what I like. It's not about the music that stimulates me. It's about what stimulates the youth, this generation. And I don't know what that answer is. And I'd love to be able to bullshit you with an answer that makes some sense, but I can't think of one. I just have to say that the most important thing is that we got to pass the baton on, which goes back to my point about succession management. It's not about what I think. You know, it's not, you know, when Junior or Saf or Abby or those people work for me, I didn't second guess them. It's kind of like, you guys are responsible for what you do. You know, I'm giving you the rope to hang yourselves. You know what? And I will support you until it becomes my neck. But ultimately, I want to give you the opportunity to be the voice of your generation, not my generation.
I just wanted to know, because you're now moved into brand partnerships and with music industry and stuff like that. I wanted to find out if you've got any insightful tips on how, say for instance, me as a label manager can encourage brands to be a bit more interested into my artist as a from a music perspective. So for instance, like Rihanna just did a £25 million deal for a tour. How would you go about doing something like that from your perspective?
So for a brand's perspective, the only reason a brand wants to partner itself with an entity, be it music or sport, is to be given a license to communicate with the people that they talk to. And if by any chance that interaction looks false, contrived, difficult, then the consumers are not going to believe it. So the idea is to create a natural relationship that justifies the partnership. Both parties have got to walk away from this feeling as though they've not been compromised in any way. The artist is not compromised in establishing a relationship with a brand, because they're given that license to the brand to communicate to their consumers. So they've got to second guess their consumers to say, actually, you'll like this stuff that I'm doing here, you'll like this stuff. And if they can't answer that question in that way, then there's a big problem. So the idea with Rihanna doing a deal for 25 million or 125 million, doesn't matter what it is, if she's not able to look up to her fans and say, actually, you'll like this stuff, then it's wrong.
Been talking about passing on the baton and inspiring the next generation. I wanted to know, what is the legacy that you'd like to leave behind, and what are you doing to help the next generation?
My legacy is, I do not want to be remembered as the person that stood in the way of somebody else. I want to be remembered as a person that gave the opportunity to somebody to be themselves.
So I wanted to know, through your career, obviously people define success as something different. So you've discussed about bringing people through. People look at it for money. People also look at the fact that they can platinum plaques. But for you, based on your career, what has been success and the way that you feel you have persevered to get to where you've got to?
My definition of success, as far as I'm concerned, is just looking around this room. I can see people that have worked for me. I've seen people that I've worked with. I can see people that hopefully are inspired by what I've said. That's my definition of success, that I can leave something that resonates with somebody, that, I don't know, I guess in the same way as they've resonated with me, that they've touched my life, that I'd like to feel as though I've touched their lives in a different way.
Thank you so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and watch the rest of our talks below.